Hello, NFL enthusiasts. It's time for the GambLou 2-minute drill. Each week, we're going to try and post a video, give a little insight, whether it's UFC or NFL, or in hockey season, some puck insight. Will be NFL today. And let's just say that after 2 weeks in the NFL, we've only gathered 12% of the data and material on each of these teams and individuals that we will have had after week 17 before the playoffs start. So we can't make monumental decisions here or predictions right now, but we are going to give some insight based on only 12% of the information. Let's talk about some teams, and we're going to categorize them. The Hammers in the Lake are teams that we think are very, very close to having no shot at all to compete. In fact, the first Hammer in the Lake happens to be Cleveland, and we all know that they do not have a chance to compete. It cannot be in the NFL's best interest to ever have a team that's been as traditionally poor as Cleveland. The NFL has to help them get better. Hopefully, the new regime that's come in and the out-of-the-box thinking in the Cleveland hierarchy will help them create a new culture. We're convinced that Coach Hugh Jackson is the right man to lead them into a new culture if they'll simply give him and the hierarchy there 4 or 5 years to get it done. In the NFL, 4 or 5 years is an eternity. In Indianapolis, we see a team with a great quarterback, but with systematic problems in the front office. I think the owner, who's a great guy, is trying to marry the GM and the head coach, and that's a divorce situation, not a reconciliation. We don't have any confidence whatsoever in that GM, and while we really admire Pagano and all his players do as well, he's a defensive-minded coach coaching Andrew Luck. There's got to be widespread change in Indy because there's no talent around Luck. He's getting busted up already with the patchwork offensive line, and on defense, they can't stop anybody. Indy and Cleveland are hammers in the lake, joined by potentially Chicago. We really invite everybody to try and YouTube Pernell McPhee last night as he bumped Cutler on the sidelines. If you key in on McPhee, who's a team captain, that'll tell you all you need to know about the mentality of the Chicago Bears. And I think when we get to the last thought of our 2-minute drill today, we'll go further as to what we really think is happening behind the closed doors in the Chicago Bears. Lastly, Washington's a team that won the division last year, entered this year with tremendous expectation, which is never good for a team that isn't in the tradition of winning. And now you got a quarterback trying to make a contract that's maybe pressing a little too much. So you got a quarterback pressing, team expectation. They're 0-2 out the block. It looks like Washington is also a hammer in a lake. We see some rubber duckies that are floating right now, but we got questions as to which way they may be going. So our middle category of the NFL teams, we'll start off with a team like Baltimore, who's 2-0 and looks great. But Baltimore's had the easiest schedule in their division for the first 6 weeks. That's a Warren Sharp stat for you. We'll go to Tampa Bay, who we took 6-1 to win the NFC South. Tampa Bay, we think, is a good team like they showed against Atlanta as opposed to what they showed against the Cardinals. Here's a team, Seattle, that everybody would think would be in our last category, but it's not. Seattle has built a team with great defense. They've given their money to the defensive players, their quarterback, and they have an offensive line that is ranked on our rankings 31st in the NFL. Russell's already banged up. He can't move. The wide receivers are gimpy. They're already at running back by committee. Look for Seattle to struggle to make the playoffs, and we feel strong about that statement. Another team I think people are looking to have a great season this year, we may not think so much of, is the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that's exceeded the season win total for 5 straight years, and last year was 12-3-1 against the spread. That kind of major momentum for that long does not carry over in the NFL, and we will credit Mark Lawrence with the stats that allowed us to make this point, but the point is Cincinnati's a fade, and we faded them for the first 2 weeks, much to our delight. Other teams, San Diego's a better team than people think. A little bit hit with injuries with the Woodhead situation, but we see they just brought in a player from Tennessee this week. So Cincinnati, Houston, Kansas City, and Dallas, all teams we're watching. We're particularly interested in Dallas because we do believe in the rookie quarterback there. The battleships in the NFL are the big boys, and that's the Green Bay, the Vikings, the Broncos, the Panthers, Pittsburgh, New England. Pittsburgh got an awful favorable schedule. They're starting to get players back, and they've looked as complete this early in the season as they have in many years. The Vikings, we're intrigued by the Vikings. They are a team. They play great defense, and even though Bradford's in, a new quarterback, and now AP may be out for a few weeks, here's a team that plays D, is going to run the ball no matter who's at quarterback and no matter who's at running back. And that's a team we're not worried about. They're going to be around late, as opposed to Green Bay, where we may still have some questions. That offense is still in, it's a little bit of a question. Jordy isn't selling me on any kind of speed or burst, and Devontae Adams can't catch a cold. I think there's trouble in Green Bay, and we almost wanted to put them in the Seattle category in the Rubber Duckies, but we'll hold off a little on that. We see the Giants as a decent team in the NFC, someone that can threaten, but it's Arizona and Carolina as we see it now, and Pittsburgh and New England, depending on the New England quarterback situation. Each week in the 2-minute drill, we'd like to close with some tidbit of information to pass on. And this week, we're going to go to this week's Week 3 game, Chicago in Dallas. The Pernell McPhee situation is such that when the press and all the ABC lettered news outlets get a hold of that tape, they're going to paint Chicago full of strife. And while that may well be the case, we believe, based on what we saw at McPhee, is that when that locker room and that team gets in the locker room and closes the doors, and it's coaches and team and sanctuary, that team has the potential to completely bond over this. That kid McPhee, the passion in his face screaming at Cutler, said to me that team is not giving up on their season yet. They're getting a full touchdown right now in Dallas this Sunday. By the time the game goes off, that thing could easily be 7 in the hook. We're looking at Chicago as a very live dog this weekend. That's the GambLou 2-minute drill. Thank you very much.